Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. My name is Sassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And you're here this morning, and we're here to talk with you about an important topic. We've been talking about, why are we still together? Like, why? We seem miserable. We seem disconnected. We seem displaced. We seem like we're trapped in our anger. We don't talk. We don't connect. We don't make love. We don't date. All we do is come together to deal with the kids and pay the bills. Why are we still together? As much pain as you can articulate, as much as you complain about your spouse, something has you here.
What's that anger? But before we jump into that, I want to remind you, make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss a show, do you? Do you? Or do you want your friends to miss it? Do you want your family to miss it? Do you want any couple that you know that's going through to miss it? You don't. So make sure that you do that every day, and we'll see you every day.
All right, listen, before we get into today's conversation, we're on a countdown. It's about less than 40 days away from the Phoenix Awards Gala. So make sure you get your tickets. It's going to be amazing.
Get your tickets. It's going to be amazing. Rolling out the 75-foot orange.
There it is.
For the Couples Academy brand. Orange carpet. Have you ever walked? Now, many people have walked on red carpets.
Yes.
Like everywhere you go, you walk on a red carpet. But have you ever walked on a red carpet, orange carpet.
And so you're like, orange
carpet.
Like, what's the significance of that?
Right.
Yeah, it's beyond the fact that it's our color theme. Orange represents something. Every color means something. We'll get into that maybe at another time, but there's purpose and intentionality in everything that we do. So you want to make sure you come. And listen, let me tell you, if you're broke, busted, and disgusted, don't have a pot to pee in, and a window to throw it out of, and you're like, I can't afford it. Yes, you can, because you just came from that Beyonce concert where you paid $800, $2,000. You got your outfits. You had your dinner. You did all types of things. You do what you want to do with your money.
Right. I see you in them new shoes you got. I see you with your red bottoms. Come on, y'all.
Danielle,
come on. It's really about what you value. If you value relationships, if you value the high top tier experience that you're going to get, if you value that, then you'll be there. So anybody who's listening to us, I know you value relationships. I know you value your marriage, and we are raising a standard and the roof on October 7th at the Phoenix Awards Gala. So don't miss it, because you will regret it.
Talk to the people in Nigeria. What's going on?
Hey, Nigeria. I'm coming to Lagos on, I leave out on September 11th, so I'll be there very soon, and I'm so excited to go to the Wow Men Conference. It's just us girls this year, and it's going to be phenomenal. I'm talking to the wives over there in Lagos, and I'm helping them understand their power as a superhero wife. We didn't even know. We thought we were just supposed to be in here sweeping the floor.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
And mopping and
not
cooking,
that there's anything wrong with that.
Cleaning and wiping snotty noses and changing diapers. No, that is not what God intended. We're going to reinterpret. We ain't going to reinterpret. We're going to interpret what the word says correctly, and we're going to rectify some things, because women have not understood the authority and the power that they have been given to be warrior wives. And so I can't wait to talk to the ladies over there in Lagos.
I think what you're saying is important, right? Women don't understand their power and authority. Men don't understand their power and authority. And I think that is a perfect transition into what we're talking about today, because what we find is that so many spouses are blaming their spouse, their partner, their significant other, their wife, their husband, for where the state of the marriage is. And they've given up their power, and they've put all the responsibility on their spouse, not realizing that, wait a minute, they have a level of responsibility and should have accountability for their own lives to determine. See, because you determine the quality of your marriage. And so what happens is we're telling ourselves these old stories and holding on to these old narratives about what may have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago that we haven't released, we haven't let go, we've held on to it, and now we have a new internal code of conduct, and we have this new internal vow we've made within ourselves that we're going to be this way and do this thing and never forget and never let go, and the bitterness that we hold on to and the resentment and the contempt and the vitriol that we have towards our spouse just never goes away, and all we do is point the finger. But when you point the finger, you got to realize that there are three fingers pointing right back at you. So what are you doing? What level of responsibility are you taking for your life and the impact that it has on your marriage?
I agree. I mean, I think there's always cause and effect, and we forget that. Personality styles play a part in every single thing you do every day, all day. We can never forget. And I think that we have struggled to just honor and acknowledge the person that we are with, so that we just talk to them and treat them how we want to, and we don't consider the impact of our approach. And I think that's a big part of it. We're together and it's convenient, and we're going half on kids, but we are not happy. We don't communicate. We're not having sex. We're not touching. We're just here because it's convenient until it's not. And I remember I thought that way for a long time. I'm just like, we just going half on these babies, okay? Because guess what? I got 4 kids, and you gonna help me raise these babies. And let me see, I could take this for about another how many ever years, And so until you make a committed decision to start to do some work on you, because the enemy is in me, then things aren't going to change. And I said that specifically because as long as Hassani and I were trying to fix each other, nothing changed. The battle ensued. We were in war, right? We were going to show each other, and the battles never ended. It was one battle after the next battle after the next battle. And even if we had a ceasefire for a moment, because things got to get done, you got to eat some dinner, you got to have some sex, you got to have a conversation here and there. The moment someone disagreed or somebody did something that we didn't like, back to the battlefield.
Yes.
You're wrong, I'm right, and let me prove it to you. Who wants to live that life?
Unfortunately, too many people do live that life. They have this very passionate relationship, but passion is a two-sided coin. Passion, to your point, when we take a ceasefire and a break, we have to have sex. Passion. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe not. It could be empty. But the point is you're engaging in something. It could be duty.
Duty booty.
It could be, wow. Really? At 9:30 in the morning? Duty booty?
Somebody just had some.
Yuck. Just the visual. I don't want any. We never had duty booty. There was no duty in that booty. No. Duty sex. Okay? All right, let's get that right.
They understand.
Right. But then the passion of the argument that would ensue, right? So much so that your kids have a front row seat. And we don't realize that what we're doing, we get so caught up in our own experience, we don't realize that we're leaving a legacy in our children, teaching them what communication looks like, teaching them what marriage and commitment looks like, teaching them what love is. And so what happens is they embrace it because children are sponges. It's not always a matter of them knowing right from wrong. What they take in, this is normal. Okay, this is how two people who are in love are supposed to act. And you don't realize that you're training your children through your own behavior on how they should function in adult relationships. And beyond that, if you are in a space where all you do is fuss and fight and complain and argue, or maybe you're not that couple because there's certain personality types that just don't do that. They're just completely disconnected. There's a deadness in their relationship, and they're like two individuals who operate in a marriage, but there's no relationship. The more you do it, the easier it is to remain in that space. And the easier it is to remain in that space long enough, that becomes your new temperament. That's your new relational dynamic. Right. And it's hard to break it and bring it back together.
Yeah, because it feels normal to just have no emotional connection, no physical attraction. You're just about the duties. You're getting it done. And then lo and behold, out here in these streets, at your job, somebody piques your interest because you are human. And it is human nature for us to connect. So if you're not connecting to your spouse, which is under your roof because you've put them in the friend zone, your own spouse is in the friend zone under your roof, it really does open you up to receive the sprinklings of the attention of somebody else out in that street. And it will, it'll arouse that desire and that interest and that connection. And you'll be thinking, wow, I've never felt like this with my spouse. Well, you didn't sow no seeds over there with your spouse. You done sidelined them. You done put them in the friend zone. You've refused to look at you. The new person don't know you yet, because if they knew you, they would run, okay? But that's how it goes. It's just like you start to, see your interest is being, or somebody's piquing your interest outside of your home, and you start investing there. And all of that ends in the same place with you, having to work on you, develop you, and get yourself together. because when you start working on you, everything around you changes. It changes your environment because your environment has to wrap itself around the person that you are. So when you start shifting, the people around you can't treat you the same because you're not the same. And that's why it always ends with you.
That's absolutely right. You're talking about how other people start to pique your interest, right? So not that you're intentionally looking, but then here's the reality, guys. If you're not taking the time to effectively communicate with your partner and to share what's going on in your heart and your mind, and this is a common issue amongst men, I don't know, maybe for women too, a lot of times, you know what, I feel like I can't tell you what's on my mind. I can't share my feelings because I'm already calculating what your response is going to be. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to get into another argument. I don't want no drama. So I say nothing, right? And because I feel like I can't speak out, I eventually begin to seek out in others what I feel like I cannot have within my own marriage. And oftentimes when I'm seeking things out, I'm not seeking out sex. I'm not seeking out an affair. I'm seeking out understanding. I'm seeking out conversation. I'm seeking out companionship. And as a result of that, as a consequence, oftentimes it goes down a slippery slope and winds up in a full-blown affair, but it doesn't have to because we're not doing the necessary work. And then what we do is, to the topic, we blame our spouse for where we are in our relationship. But what we always like to say is that you are the lowest common denominator in the relationship that you are in. And so at what point do you begin to take a look at yourself to figure out what you're contributing? Whatever side of the hurt that you may be on, what role are you currently playing that really has impacted the relational dynamic of your marriage? These are the things that we need to talk about. Listen, guys, we're going to get into some more conversation, but we're going to take a quick commercial break. So listen, while we are on a break, go to the website, get your gala tickets, be in the house, be there or be square. Be right back, guys.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. we're talking about, blaming your spouse in the marriage. And we want to go through a couple of items that I think could help shift you out of that, because as long as you remain in that, you will look at your spouse as your enemy, as your adversary, as your opponent, as someone who's playing for the other side. And it's hard to develop intimacy and connection and to tap into the power of your relationship if you look at your spouse that way. So really, I guess is first, there's something called confirmation bias, right? Confirmation bias is when you tend to look at your spouse based upon who they once were, how they once showed up, and even when they've proven themselves to be different or on a journey to become different, you imprison them to their past. You never let it go. And so no matter what they do, no matter what evidence supports the fact that they've changed, you have a bias about them, and you're looking for confirmation of the bias that you hold on to. And it imprisons your partner and gets them to the point where they feel like saying, what's the point? I'm doing all this work. I'm doing all this effort. You don't see me. I was dealing with a couple recently, and they were like, I just wish that my spouse would just see me. They are seeing the demon. They are seeing the shadow. They're having, they're living in their past and not seeing me for who I currently am. And that is what causes people to continue to blame their spouse for things that they're not necessarily currently doing.
And that's interesting because also, that's also true that you are confirming the bias by looking at the evidence, right? And our brains are designed to do that. Your intellect reminds you of everything. That's where all the thoughts are, all the thinking happens, all the ruminating happens, all the discerning happens, right? But in addition to that, there's you and your lens, and you might find that you're the type of person that, for example, always feels overlooked. My whole life, I felt overlooked. And so that confirmation bias could be internal as well, that you are looking for the rejection that you've always perceived. And that's why it's about you. Until we really get down deep and deal with what's going on with you, you won't be able to change your lenses, and you'll struggle to see your partner for what they're trying to achieve. You'll magnify the little things that confirm the bias, right, to prove your point. And this is a place that you get stuck. This is why Unearth is such a powerful program. A lot of us women, we hold on to these experiences, these emotions go deep, right? And we get to go through a 12-week process in Unearth where we peel all those layers and we really discover what's going on with me. What do I need to release so that I can see clearly? Let me get all the specks out of my eye so that I can see clearly to judge things properly.
Right. I mean, and listen. You have to take the time to pause and reflect on where you currently are. I remember one of the complaints that I had. I'm more of a touchy-feely person than Danielle is, right? So my love language is touch. And so she would say, well, I'm just not a touchy-feely person. And I was just like, I need more touch. And so my bias about her was that she never touches me.
Not true.
That was a bias,
I know,
right?
I'm just
because it's not true because it's an absolute, but it wasn't to the degree that I wanted it. And so when she began to touch me, I did not that I chose not to verbally articulate that she's doing it. I didn't notice it. See, what happens is you notice what you place your focus on. So if you place your focus on the fact that it's not enough, even when it's done, you're not even realizing you're experiencing it. Correct. Because your mind is so set on it's not enough.
Right.
So when she would do it, she would have to remind me, do you realize, Sasani, that I actually hugged you today and touched you today? And I'm like, no, when did you do that? Right?
No, he wasn't remembering.
So I had a bias and I was looking for confirmation of it. And it wasn't until I released that bias and I began to be more conscious and aware about what was going on, I began to accept what she was doing. Now, at the time, it wasn't enough, but it was something. Now, if all I were to do was just like, yeah, you touched me, but I'm saying it still wasn't enough. Now I'm minimizing what she's done, which is demotivating her. And she will get to the point where she's just like, well, what's the point? I'm not touching you then if you can't even acknowledge what it is that I'm doing.
Oh, this is so good. And this is good. I'm glad you brought this out.
Right.
Because it's so true that, it'll cause people to throw in the towel, because when somebody says, well, yeah, you're doing this, but it's not enough. Well, what is enough? Because there's two sides to the perspective, right? If I'm a needing person and I'm a non-needing person, where do we meet in the middle, right? So this is where we get into the negotiation of it all. But if you're not even seeing the effort being made, I remember Hassani and I got into a whole fuss where we were talking about him not getting enough touch. And I'm like, but you don't remember all the touching this week, that week, and he hadn't remembered it. And so I started saying, I'm touching you now. I want you to notice I'm touching. Do you see how much touching I'm doing, so that it could help him release that confirmation bias? Because if it's not a need of mine, right, but I'm offering it up and you throwing it in the garbage, that's just as bad as me cooking a dinner for my family and them not eating my food.
Oh man, that's a whole nother show for those parents who can understand that.
I'm staring at every woman that understands my pain.
Yeah.
It's the same, isn't it, right? So I need you to acknowledge my food. I need you to taste it. I need you to tell me it was good. Not that, oh, yeah, you just touched me. Yeah, you're right. No, yeah. Oh, yeah, I appreciate all this touching and cuddling, because you know it's a sacrifice.
So acknowledgement, guys. Acknowledgement is so critically important. And so it's so much easier to blame. It's so much easier to point the finger. It's so much easier to talk about what your spouse is not doing and how they're not showing up and what you want them to do more of. But you don't realize that you're crushing your spouse's spirit. You're really doing that. And so I remember Danielle a long time ago, and she says it, every now and then, the importance of speaking to the seed in your spouse, not the weeds that surround your spouse. The seed is the potential, right? A seed can germinate, grow, produce a harvest. And the more you place your focus on the right thing and speak to the right thing, that thing will grow. So rather than me saying, you're not touching me enough, acknowledge the touch that you're getting. Baby, I really appreciate the fact that you touched. Oh my God, I loved it. And so what that does is it motivates them to do more. So statistics have shown that when people are criticized and critiqued for what they don't do, it demotivates them. When they are acknowledged and celebrated for what they do, it motivates them to do more of what they began to do, but not at the degree that you would want it. And so it's knowing how to engage and connect with your spouse. It's knowing how to motivate your spouse.
And I agree with Tamika saying. She says it's a trust issue. Trust has to be rebuilt no matter what kind of change they have achieved. If trust is violated, change will not be received. Well, this is very true. And this is why we're talking about one tank here. Okay. I want you to think about whatever you're going through as a tank and the levels of which your tank is filled. If the trust tank is empty, then touch is like not even on the table yet. We need to start building trust. If we don't trust each other and or the things that you say or the actions that you take, then all the other tanks, the touching tank, the communication tank, the sex tank, whatever the tanks are, those are going to suffer because you don't have the foundation, which is trust. Trust is like, that's what everything is held together on. So that means that you really need to start to work on that trust and rebuilding that trust. But one thing that I will say that is still consistent is that confirmation bias, right? Because the person that you are with could be trying to restore the trust. They could be doing all these things to rebuild, opening up their lives, showing you their cell phone, they text, checking in every 5 minutes. But still, if they skip a beat, if for some reason they missed a call, all of a sudden your trust tank goes to zero, right? So it's super demotivating to that person who might be trying to restore trust if you still see them through this confirmation bias, if you're still trying to validate that they can't be trusted anymore, that they'll never change when they're doing the best that they can to change.
Absolutely. I want to go to Vanessa. Vanessa says it's too late for my marriage, but I'm learning such critical information for future reference. Well, let me just say, if the judge hasn't hit the gavel, it's not too late. I don't know your situation. I don't know where you are. Listen, all I know is that people have come to us in spaces and places where they thought it was over. People have come to us who have been separated, living in different homes for 5 to 6 years, and they were able to restore your relationship. So I don't know if that's just your perception, that's just your feeling, that's just your idea, or if that's the fact. But if you are not divorced, it is not too late. We have seen all types of things turn around. Remember, it was Hitler who said that A lie told 1,000 times is more powerful than the truth told once. And oftentimes we engage in negative self-talk, and we've convinced ourselves about what's not possible. We have these thoughts that consume our mind, and usually they're thoughts of negativity, thoughts of limitation, thoughts of doubt, thoughts of fear, thoughts of anxiety, and they feel so real. And we've made our feelings facts. And so when we've made our feelings facts, when any evidence presents itself, we disregard it because of how we feel and because of how we think. And I just want to give you the freedom to think differently, to look at your situation differently, to put in the effort. Because truth be told, if I believe it's over, I'm not giving any effort towards what I believe is just not going to work. Like, what's the point? Like, I'm almost tricking and fooling myself. What am I doing this for? So my energy's not there. My belief's not there. The authority, the power that I need to operate in is not there. And so I'm just checking a box and going through the motions with a deeply inherent belief that it won't work. And oftentimes we sabotage our own efforts because of these thoughts and feelings that work against us instead of for us.
100.
So it's possible for you. Sean has a comment. My issue with my husband is after an argument, he checks out, sleeps on the couch, no talking, ignores. And for me, it's hurtful. I need more when things are bad. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. So I think that also speaks to Enneagram. We were just talking about this before we started the show about personality types and how, and matter of fact, you've talked about it, how for some personality types, energy is drained when they're in conflict and there's like no more in them, where others are fully charged, ready to go and could go for hours more. And so if you're tapped out and I've still got more energy and we're not operating at the same level of energy and emotions and everything else, it could feel disregarding, disrespectful. It could feel like, wait a minute, you're not engaged in this. You don't want this because you're giving me evidence that proves that you're not interested. And that may not be the case. It's really understanding who your spouse is and knowing. We talk about creating the right environment for conversations, creating the right time to talk. You know, some people talk 2 o'clock in the morning and want to have a 3-hour conversation, though their spouse needs to get up at 6 to go to work. Wrong time, wrong place. It's just like you have to learn rules of engagement.
I think that you might want to begin to investigate, with your spouse, why that's happening, instead of making assumptions, right? Because people just, we would like to put labels on people and make assumptions. And when you're cool, when you're calm, outside of an argument, sit down with your spouse and figure out, what do you need when we get into a conflict? When I say conflict, I mean conflict is just some kind of disagreement. We're not seeing eye to eye, right? So how you deal with that is up to you. But having a conversation with them to find out what works for them, because some people, for example, they don't, they care about the scene. Where is this conflict happening? And it doesn't even matter if you're hollers, if you scream, or if you speak very soft spoken. Some people, when they're in conflict, you would never know because they don't raise their voices and they don't use a lot of hand gestures and all that. But they really have a problem with those things being done in public spaces, right? Other people are completely drained when they get into some kind of a conflict, and they actually do need days to recover. They need to think it through. Some people are process-minded, right? And so they need to think it through. They need to analyze it. They're ruminating on it, and they don't have a response for a couple of days. That's just how they're wired. And so we have to stop getting angry with people about how they're wired. If you were born without an arm, your left arm, what can you do about that but just work with your right arm, right? And so at the end of the day, some people are wired in such a way that it is very agitating to us and we don't understand what's going on. Once we get understanding, we can have empathy and we can be considerate and we can begin to operate with our spouse in knowledge. And so when you have these conflicts and you're dealing with things, you'll know when enough is enough. You'll know, okay, it's been 10, 15 minutes. Let's take a break. Let's reconvene. I can see your eyes are glazing over. I can see whenever I get to this point in an argument, this person starts yawning and gets tired and, they start closing their eyes and leaning to the side. It's because they're emotionally drained. They only have a certain capacity and you have filled them up. So you have to become knowledgeable about your spouse. How is it that we're married to people that we do not really know?
And to your point, everything communicates, right? So when I see somebody yawning and their eyes are full in the back of their head, my interpretation of that is you don't care, you're
That's
being
an
disrespectful.
interpretation.
That's my point.
Correct.
That's my point. Everything communicates, but oftentimes there's a disconnect in our communication. Mm-hmm. And so as you're encoding a message to me, I'm decoding it. And as I decode it, I may be attaching my own meaning to the message you're delivering than what you mean by what you said and how you're showing up. And so it could be very off-putting, yes. Right? And so
even disrespectful points. I mean, because what you're saying, like rolling my eyes and breathing.
No, I don't mean like that. No. You were saying getting tired, like I'm falling asleep and my eyes are rolling in the back of my head, not because I'm like disgusted, right, but because I'm just tapped out, right? So I misinterpret that as you don't care. And so the question becomes, who does the conflict actually serve? Does it serve you? No. Does it serve your spouse? No. So how can we engage in conversation, communication, without it going to a conflict? You see what I'm saying? So this is why rules of engagement are important. So if you know your husband has a tendency to do these things, why don't we create a different scenario? Why don't we create a different environment, a different time period? Why don't we have a conversation before we have the conversation? Hey, babe, how can I get you at your best? What are the circumstances and conditions where I have you fully invested? How much time can we dedicate to a conversation? Because what happens is we get so off-put by the way our spouse is showing up, we never really get to address the issue. Yeah. Now, the way you're showing up is the issue, and guess what? We have all these unresolved issues that are creating resentment in this relationship, and we get to the point where we have a limiting belief about the possibility of what we can have in our marriage.
And my suggestion would be, really that this is not something to try to dissect on your own, because of what you're saying is so true that, now you're frustrated with each other about how you're showing up. Even when I try to approach you walking on eggshells, I'm triggered because you're showing up in that way that agitates me so deeply. And you just don't understand what's going on. It's just like, I'm throwing in the towel because I tried to approach you. And when I tried to approach you calm, you gave me this energy, and you're just decoding all of this and not understanding what you're actually seeing. So I would suggest reach out. We have a powerful personality assessment. We do it with the couple. We can do it individually because it's actually incredibly helpful for you to understand who you are as well. I mean, you can't just know your spouse and not know how you interact with your spouse. These personalities are literally battling and warring all the time. And we have a method to help you both wave the white flag. But come to us and let us help you understand each other. It's amazing to take couples through that journey and they're like, oh my God, all these years I thought you were just lazy. All these years I just thought you were just angry. All these years I just thought you were pompous and arrogant. Yeah. Now you get to understand the meaning behind the message that you're experiencing, and you can show your spouse a different regard. When you get into conflict, when you have issues, just regular day to day, you will have an increased level of respect and understanding for your spouse.
And let me just say this. Last night we were in Foundry Mastery, and we were talking about one of our graduates who, when he first came in, this is on a financial perspective, right? He was making about $250,000 a year, right? So after going through the classes and learning the principles, he made a quantum leap to 1.2, and now he's on track for 12 million, right? And so I said, pause. Let's talk about this. This is not somebody who just read a bunch of books. He lives the principles of the books. This is not a person who understood who just was taught the layers of the compass and showed up for class. This is someone who lives and embraces the principles that have been outlined. What is my point? There are those of you who are watching right now who are asking these questions and giving these comments who would say, yeah, we already did counseling. Yeah, we went to the Last Chance Weekend. Yeah, we did that program. Yeah, we did that. But are you living it? To know and to not do is to not know. And it doesn't matter how much you know. What are you doing with it? Are you practicing, the techniques? Are you working it? A lot of people may know the compass, but they don't live the compass in their life. You may know these principles. You can quote us, but are you living the quote? Are you experiencing it in your life? Because if you are not, it is let me tell you something. Your fruit exposes you. Or your lack of fruit exposes you. So you know what to do, but are you doing what you know. And if you are not, you will continue to remain trapped in this space of marital mediocrity. Man, that's a topic right there.
Or personal mediocrity. You're right. Because it only takes one to change. Guys, you've been listening to the Couples Academy Show. We will see you on another day tomorrow.
That's right.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye.